In the last two sessions, we covered two of the inputs into our strategy process. First, we covered the external environment, and then we discussed analyzing the internal environment, some of our strengths and weaknesses. In today's session, I would like to cover the third of the strategic inputs, which is the vision and the mission of companies, as well as the core values. Now, this is a factor that is often underestimated and overlooked. And in this short session, I would like to highlight the importance of this factor. And I would like to start by looking at the hierarchy of these elements and basically highlighting what we are going to cover today. First, we're going to look at the vision. What is a good vision statement? What is it there for? What is its purpose? The second then is the mission statement of a company. Then we look at strategic objectives. And finally, we look at the importance of having core values. So let's start off with the vision statement. A vision basically is defined as an organizational goal, and this goal should evoke powerful and compelling mental images. So, for example, it should cover what is the future that the organization seeks to create. It should be an aspiration that will enthuse, gain commitment, and stretch performance. So it should be highly motivating, and it should encourage the employees and stakeholders to support the vision of the organization and to get excited about it. One way I like to think about it is to ask myself, like, what do I want to achieve? What should the organization look like in 5, 10, 20 years, or even further out? When looking at vision statements, it is actually not so easy to find good vision statements or good examples of vision statements. The reason is that many companies seem to mix up vision and mission statements, and we will see this in the next example. But here I found 7 examples of vision statement that I found inspiring and that I found particularly good statements. So the first one is actually from the South African Department of Education, whose vision statement is a South Africa in which all our people have access to lifelong learning. That's a fantastic vision. It's aspirational, it's inspirational. That is really great. McDonald's, our vision is to be the world's best quick service restaurant. Very clear, very straightforward. Everyone in the organization will easily understand what we are there to work for. And maybe to take a third example, GE, where the statement is to be number 1 or 2 in every single market that we serve. It's very straightforward, very clear, easy to remember, gives a strong sense of purpose and a strong vision for the employees. Next is the mission statement. And the mission statement is basically an operationalization of the vision. So in the definition, it aims to provide employees and stakeholders with clarity about what the organization is fundamentally there to do, which means the purpose of the organization, its scope of operations, and what the basics or the basis of its competitive advantage is supposed to be. A couple of examples of great mission statements. Tesla at first, to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Very clear. Or the one from TED, very straightforward also, simply to spread ideas. It's actually built in the branding of TED already, which you see in the logo. TED, ideas worth spreading, and the purpose, the mission statement is to spread ideas. And for LinkedIn, the purpose is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. So this is the mission statement. Directly derived from the mission statement, and next in the hierarchy of the goals, are the strategic objectives. So these are statements of very specific outcomes that are supposed to be achieved. So they further operationalize the mission statement and provide guidance of things that the organization can do to achieve its vision and mission. And those strategic objectives should be SMART, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And just some textbook examples of those strategic objectives. I just pick one financial and one non-financial objective. So that could be, for example, to increase sales growth by 6% to 8% and accelerate core net earnings from 13% to 15% per share in each of the 5 years. So you see it's measurable, it's very specific, it's probably achievable, relevant to the organization, and you see with the number 5 years, it's also time bound, so there's a time horizon set for it. Or a non-financial objective, reduce the volatile air emissions 15% by 2015 from the 2010 base year index to net sales. That is 3M's example of non-financial objectives. Again, like very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant for what the company wants to achieve, and with a 5-year horizon, again, 2010 to 2015, it is also time bound. Next, an element, again, that is often overlooked. Many companies, of course, have core values, but I tend to think that companies don't spend enough time on their core values and don't spend enough time to really internalizing those core values and bringing them across to their people. So why is it so important? Corporate values communicate the core principles. And these core principles should guide the organization's strategy. That's why it's so relevant to the strategic thinking and the strategic planning process. Now, why core values? For me, the ultimate test always is, do these values change with circumstances? And if the answer is yes, they would change with circumstances, then the values are not core. They are not enduring and not core. Give you an example. If you say, we always set highest professional standards, like here in the example of McKinsey, but if times get tough and if the economy is doing bad or the company is doing badly financially, then we are willing to take shortcuts. Then this is definitely not a core value because it comes with a condition. The case of McKinsey here, 3 core values: adhere to highest professional standards, improve clients' performance significantly, and create an unrivaled environment for exceptional people. At my time at McKinsey, it was very clear we knew these values, and every year we were reminded of the values through Values Day, which was one day set aside to specifically think about and talk about the values and promote them among staff. And it was made very clear at any point in time that these were non-negotiable and non-compromisable. No matter what, these 3 principles were always to be adhered to. And therefore, these are core values. Finally, we are now at the end of the session about strategic inputs. And I have some, what I like to call loose ends that we have to catch up on. They didn't really fit into any of the 3 input factors, but are more like general strategic inputs. And I would like to talk about at least 2 of these briefly. The first one is a framework that summarizes basically the contents of the external environment and the analysis of the internal strengths and weaknesses. And that is the SWOT framework. So SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And basically it combines both elements, the internal and the external environment. S and W, so strength and weaknesses, come from the internal environment and from internal factors from within the organization and within the control of management. And opportunities and threats are outside of management's control. They stem from the external environment. Of course, strength and opportunities are helpful to managing the goals and achieving the goals, and weaknesses and threats are harmful. Now, the only point that I would like to make here and that I would like to highlight here is, when using this framework, please be careful not to mix up strengths and opportunities and weaknesses and threats. The key criteria really is written here on the left side for strength and weaknesses. These are elements that are purely within the control of management. So they can be influenced by managerial decisions. Opportunities and threats are there to be managed, to be defended against, or to utilize as for the benefit of the company, but they are outside the control of management. For example, an oil price increase is outside of the control of anyone in the oil and gas industry. And this is likewise for a decrease in oil prices. While quality or safety is well within the realm of management and can be controlled with management as a strength or as a weakness. And the weakness, of course, needs to be fixed and defended against, and same for a threat. The second framework that I would like to introduce as last part of the strategic inputs is the growth strategy framework, the 3 horizons of growth. I find this a very good framework at the outset of the strategic thinking process, because it links directly many of the elements that we discussed, the external environment, the internal environment, the core competencies that we need to build, as well as it links directly back to the vision and the mission statement, because it looks forward at least 5 years. And so this framework helps to build a strong vision for the company. And the idea behind this framework is that each company needs to think in 3 horizons in order to sustainably grow. The first horizon concerns the core business. This is the existing business, the business that is there today. And here the idea is that for the next 1 or 2 years, the goal is to defend and expand the current business as a core business. And the focus here is on immediate gains in revenues and profits. That's the start out of the growth journey. Now, in order for the business to grow beyond that, beyond the next 1 or 2 years, it needs to go to Horizon 2, where we need to think about initiatives that build momentum and that give rise to emerging new businesses that might not be big right now, but that might be up and coming in the future. So this will drive growth within the next 3 to 5 years and will become relevant by the time then. So the focus here is not on profitability, but it is purely on revenues and market share and turning some future ideas into future profitability drivers. That's Horizon 2. Now, going out 5 years and longer, this is what I would call seed money. So in Horizon 3, we would seed some early ideas that might seem out of the scope right now, a little bit crazy, outside the box, and we try new things that could turn into growth ideas in the future. But here the focus is neither on revenues nor on profitability, but this is about trying new things, about innovation. Here, for example, a KPI could be the number of new ideas or number of new initiatives launched. And the idea is that these have the highest value potential in the future, but right now they are still small. So their value will come in 5 years or longer, or they might even break away and fall out completely. So this is the area to take a little bit of risk and to try new things with limited capital investment, but seeding ideas for the future. So as we set out our vision, I find the 3 horizons a great framework to look forward and to identify factors that will grow the business. So this brings us to the end of our strategic input factors. And by now we are ready to actually and finally start our strategic thinking process and our strategic planning process.